Dearest love, you cannot help but have tears in your eyes watching what was happening. This little boy had an accident when he was younger, and so he now walked with a limp, and he still wanted to be a runner, and his teacher had convinced the school coach to allow him to run. When he went home and told his parents, the father had gone to the school the following day and asked what they meant by trying to make their child a laughing stock of the school by adding him to a running team when they know very well he cannot run. The teacher had explained that the child had a passion for it, and so they needed to encourage him. The father was furious, saying if even the child could not see his limitations, it was not right for the teachers to encourage him and end up making a fool of him. The teacher still got his way, and the day of the race came. I think you were expecting a miracle, but there was none. There was only a lot of laughter because they started the race going round the field, and he was left behind skipping along. The father said he would not show up, and yet he did. And at first, he was hiding somewhere at the back, ready to scoop his son away after the race to prevent others mocking him. The mother stood in the stands and started cheering loudly. The one who was leading the race was getting a lot of cheering, but the mother's voice seemed to drown all. Soon the race was over, and still the mother was cheering his son who was halfway round the course. The father stepped in, not ready to let his wife and child go through this alone, and he also came in and started cheering the son on as he hopped and skipped. The boy looked up and saw his mom and dad and smiled and started skipping and hopping faster. The other boys that had finished the race and were jubilating were now confused, wondering why the crowd was still cheering as if the race was still on. For the other parents had now turned their attention to the skipping boy and were cheering him on. Now the boys that had finished their race stood at the finish line and they urged their mate on. When he crossed the finish line, there was a rapturous roar with the father running onto the field to lift him up, and all the other members of the team were hailing him as well. He was the absolute last of the race, and yet he was getting more celebration than anyone. He told his father, "I did it, Daddy, I did it." He did not win a medal, but he ran the race to the end. He was not celebrated for winning. He was celebrated for taking part, and his victory overshadowed everyone's. The greatest secret in life is this. Here is something else I have learned. The fastest runners and the greatest heroes don't always win races and battles. Wisdom, intelligence, and skill don't always make you healthy, rich, or popular. We each have our share of bad luck. None of us know when we might fall victim to a sudden disaster and find ourselves like fish in a net or birds in a trap. Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verse 11 and 12. Never sit back counting what stands against you. Rise and run the race knowing anything can happen, and true victory is not about who crosses the line first, but rather who runs the race to the end. Stay blessed, trust and obey, for there is no other way. Okay.